welcome everybody to the Backstage podcast, episode 13, with special guest Cari Kamper. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
As good as I can be, per the usual with this pandemic going on.
All things
uh,
considered, the end of the world and all that.
yeah, it's so funny too, because it's like I've been seeing so many things on TikTok of like 2020, and then it's like January, February, April, and it goes through the months, and it's like we just get hit with something new every single month. I think right now
Yeah, really
there's
though.
there's talks of the bubonic plague surging in China. I don't know how accurate that
hmm
is, but I've seen that in news articles here and there, which I'm like, oh, that's just great, you know.
Just a little black plague to top off the year.
And it's kind of crazy to think about, but we're halfway through 2020 now. It happened. At first, it was
It
going
doesn't
so
feel like
slow.
it.
Yeah, I know, and now it's halfway through. So Carrie, what would you say your job title is and a little bit about your kind of your work history?
Okay. So my most recent position was the electronic maintenance coordinator, EMC for short, with Cirque du Soleil's production Volta. And my position kind of functioned as a swing tech in the sense that I learned automation show track, I learned backstage monitors show track, and I also learned an on deck lighting show track.
Oh,
So I could fill in for people and help give people days off, all that good stuff.
that's
And I
kind of
also did, sorry,
no, you good, you good.
I also did maintenance, and I worked with the front of house team on making sure they had everything that they needed. It was kind of a lot for my first job out of school, but it was also really fun and really challenging.
That sounds like the perfect job to come out of school. It's like you learn a little bit about how everything functions. For me, like in my quote quote like professional career, it's very hard to break out into other departments. Like I really want to learn like be a video tech and learn how about like LED walls and LED or like video mixing for front of house and like festivals. But it's so hard to switch tracks because I feel like a lot of people spend a lot of their time focusing on what they know best, that it's hard. And like with technology changing every day and everything updating so quickly, it's like you always have to be teaching yourself something new, right? To stay relevant. And it's
Yeah,
like my mind doesn't work that way. My mind wants to know about literally everything, and that's kind of why
teach me from square one.
yeah, teach me from square one and teach me everything you know. Like I am okay with information overload. Just lay it on me. And it's like it's even like pyrotechnics. I've always watched pyrotechnic people work, and it's mind-boggling because they'll run all their pyro off like a small little lighting console. I'm like, is that really safe? And they're like, yeah, do we do it all the time? I'm like, really? Like you're shooting 80-foot flames in the air with like an electronic little DMX controller, which like I have DMX problems. Could you imagine if you had like DMX data problems going to Pyro? That would freak me the fuck out.
Yeah,
But
same.
but they've been doing it for years, and I'm like, I want to understand why you do it like this, you know?
I also feel like a lot of people I talk to about pyro, they stumble into pyro, they just get kind of stuck doing it and they learn kind of on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Uh,
that really doesn't seem safe.
I did a 4th of July fireworks show, I think like 2 or 3 years back, where we were loading a full fireworks show, and I had no fucking prior experience. Like someone just called me, it's like, hey, my buddy's doing a fireworks show, and he usually just calls like a couple of his friends to help him out and load in. I'm like, we're literally working with explosives. Like, I feel like I should have some training with this. But with that experience, like most of the fireworks shows, they have a song and then it has a click track in their ear, and they literally have like a small little like pegboard. It's just a bunch of small little circular like contact pads, and they have something like a multimeter probe that in the track it'll just be going off, and there would be like, all right, Q1, go, and they'll just touch the little like contact pad with the pen, and it'll launch a fucking firework. And I'm like, that is so old school, but it works, you know? Like they have never changed the way they do it because it's worked for ages, you know?
That just reminds me of like pictures of switchboards where you had to like manually like turn lights on and off in a performance.
Yeah, they have like the giant wall of dimmers that are the size of you, and you have to use all your body weight to flip a dimmer.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
insane.
it's honestly crazy. I love looking at old technology and like trying to dissect it, like tube amps. Like even today, like they don't really make tube amps anymore unless it's like very particular for like guitars, but apparently they get the warmest sound of the out of the guitar when like everything's moving digital, but like they're just so expensive to make. Like they used to make and like tube I'm like word vomiting right now. Oh my gosh. I had too much
No, it's
coffee.
okay.
um
Bring on the coffee.
I know. But they tube amps are just like a vacuum. It's a vacuum tube and they somehow run electricity through it and get like waveforms out of it. It's insane.
That is
Um,
so cool.
I know. Uh, One thing. So with Cirque, were you still based out of Cincinnati?
Yeah, technically, like my home base was still Cincinnati. My boyfriend was still finishing culinary school there when the world went to shit. And so, like, I kept all my stuff there. I was still paying rent there. So, like, I had an actual tax address, all of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was traveling. So I started with them when they were in Chicago in June. And then we went to DC for a while. And then we were in Atlanta for a while. And then we were out in LA kind of when everything happened.
I think we were in LA at the same time.
Were we really?
Yeah, I think we just missed each other by like a day or two. I think we were both gigging. I think this was it LA? No, it was Chicago. We were both in Chicago at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I
It was
saw
like right when I got there too.
yeah, I saw your Volta tent being set up, and then I was driving like I think 3 or 4 streets over to go to uh there's a festival ground like a couple street over. It's like on the water, Northerly Island. That's what it's called. And I was like, oh, that's I think Carrie's on that show. I texted you, and you're like, oh yeah, I actually like just got here. I'm like super tired, but yeah, maybe we can hang out tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I load out tonight and pack up and drive home tonight.
Oh,
I was like, oh damn, it's so great though. One of my favorite things about this industry is you will find your friends literally
just like
anywhere and
anywhere.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think when
Like
I
I
was
got to see. Sorry, go on.
no, you can go ahead.
Okay. I saw Ben and Tim when I was in DC because it's like not super far from Lidditz for them to
hmm
come from there to DC and they got to see the show, which was cool.
Yeah, when I was working in LA, I think 2 years ago, I was working at a convention center. There are basically two convention centers right next to each other. And I was like just on like Snap Maps or whatever, and I was just like, scrolling around. I see Eleanor is literally right across the street from me, and I'm like, "Hey, are you in town right now?" She's like, "Yeah, I'm actually here on like an 8-hour video shoot." And I was like, "Oh, do you want to hang out?" She's like, "I literally got in at like 3 a.m. and I'm leaving in 20 minutes." I was like, "God damn it!" Like
Oh,
every time. Uh,
really though?
it honestly usually works out like that. I think the last time it actually worked out where I could like actually see someone was me and Ben were in Florida at the same time, and he came out to my venue and we kind of just hung out for like an hour and caught up a little bit. But oh, I love it. And the best part too is, did you work in a lot of like union houses or was it mostly outdoor venues?
So we take everything with us that we use.
hmm
So we would use union labor to help us set everything up and tear everything down, but otherwise it's mostly our crew.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but when you get like really friendly with the union guys and you like see them, like you'll be like working a gig and you'll turn around and be like, "Oh, hey man, I didn't know you were working this job." And they're like, "Oh, how you doing, man?" And you kind of just like you kind of leave the relationship right where you left it off, you know?
Yeah.
Oh.
It'd be nice if like so usually like I said, we set up in one place, we're there for a while, then we leave. So we do usually get a lot of the same people on the in and the out, which is nice.
Hmm.
But then we don't really see them again, obviously, because we jump states at a time.
Yeah. Ugh. I'm not gonna lie though, Cirque is one of those things that kind of restored my. I, I, I don't know. Would you call Cirque a theatrical show in terms of like production, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah,
Like
I
it's a really artistic circus.
yeah, I like I as you know, I was never one for theater. I never really like had that driving passion for theater. My heart was always in like music festivals and like live concerts and stuff like that. So when I went and saw Cirque uh in Las Vegas, I my mouth was dropped the entire time. I was like, "Oh, this is what it can be. This is so cool. Like
Mhm.
I'm having a great time." And it's so nice to have the artistic freedom that Cirque does to do the weirdest shit and make it their own, you know?
Yeah.
Um, Most of the time, and I feel like in theatrical shows, uh, especially I would say in school, I haven't really worked any theatrical shows since I've been out of school, but like there's always some kind of limiting factor, right? Whether that's like the director or like an artistic director or something like that, that's like kind of I don't want to say like holding back the project, but like you can't have that artistic freedom that you wanted, you know? And I
Yeah, and it's also like money and time
yeah,
and like the skill that you have available to you.
and it always comes down to those two things. It's money and time. You know,
Mhm.
I realize that going through CCM is like, "Oh, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Like this lighting show could be so much better." And they're like, "Okay, we don't have, 2 weeks to program a show in this space." And also, we have no budget. Where do you think this money's coming from? I was like, "Oh shit, you're right." I was
But
like,
you did such great things for like Boom and Bam while we were there.
yeah.
Like you definitely pushed for a lot of that to get bigger and better, and it totally did.
Yeah, I'm very glad that it is at a place it is now. And I think a lot of that is for like younger viewers listening to this podcast is it's kind of all about the network you build, right? The network you build is going to bring you opportunities and also it's not something that's going to just be like handed to you. Like you have to go out and get it. So like when we're doing our lighting showcases, Boom and Bam, students would fly out to LDI and make these personal connections with vendors. You know, we would be like, hey, we have this project. We're from this University of Cincinnati, and we would love for you to be a part of it. And after that first initial conversation, it's just emails after that. You just got to keep up that conversation going until your event, and we sent them a promo video of what we had in mind, and they went, "Hey, this is great. We'll send you some gear, no problem. Like, if you take care of the shipping, we'll give you like the newest demo gear we have." And it was kind of crazy that students kind of made that happen, and how we push for that ourselves, with no guidance either. Like, as much as I love CCM, that there no one was like, "Hey, you should go do this." It was like, "Hey, we have to do this for ourselves if we want to make this project as the biggest that we can."
That whole experience is definitely like a CCM is what you make of it. You
Yeah,
put into it
100%.
what you get out.
Yeah. And I loved I don't think they do it anymore, but the DAP fashion show, that was a
Did they
great
not end up well, I guess they didn't end up doing it this year, but
yeah. I don't think they were planning. I don't think lighting was planning to support it this year either, from what I was hearing. Um
really.
yeah, last year's DAP fashion show kind of ended in like a flaming ball of shit because the budget was so low and we were pulling a lot of strings to kind of make it happen.
Mm.
And once again, it comes down to money. Like that show never had the budget it needed to do the things we were putting into it. Especially with that show where they're selling tickets and it's like actually making money. we were getting a lot of the gear for free, and those kind of strings that you pull eventually run out. So I think on the last one we got a bunch of chain motors. I think we had like, I want to say like 8 to 10 chain motors or something like that, and we got that at a hefty discount. And running the generator for 3 days and all of the problems we had to work because we were working in an airplane hangar, and that's their venue. If it starts raining or hailing outside, they're going to bring those planes in no matter what, and we can't do anything about it. Like that's their primary business. So it was a lot of like, hey, we need to put this up. A storm's coming in like 10 minutes and the floor has to be cleared. So, it was a lot of hiccups that we had to deal with. But yeah, I think Mark had to pay for generator gas himself, and we were just like running back and front, or front and back to the gas station to get like basically a 5 gallon jug of diesel every like couple of hours. It
Oh my
was,
God.
yeah, it was very, very close to the edge. Like, I think he paid somewhere around $200 for diesel out of his pocket. And yeah, I think that was the final straw for him. He was like, yeah, we're done doing this because the budget is too low and we can't support this project anymore. But, it gave so many people, not just lighting kids, but also like the TDs, such a good experience to rig in an actual venue, like rig onto I-beams, actually run chain motors in like an arena style load in, which is the one thing I always loved about it. It was like something that we taught that wasn't on the curriculum, but had so much real world application.
Yeah, absolutely. It was so different from everything else that we did. And that made it so much more fun because it was just a breath of fresh air, like at
Hmm.
the end of the year.
Oh, definitely. Especially with, I think it was it 2 years ago, we had back-to-back load-ins and outs, like turnovers every single 2 weeks or something like that, and we were all just dying by the end of it.
Hmm.
That was a brutal year. That was a
It
really brutal
was.
year. I think that's the year I was a shop assistant too, so I was also on those back-to-backs, and like I think it was second semester I quit being a shop assistant. I'm like, this is too much. Like I'm not getting paid enough for this.
Yeah, and nobody blames you for that.
No, no. Even Steve was like, "Oh, you're quitting, huh?" I'm like, "Pay me more." He's like, "Yeah, you're right. I understand." I was like, "Cool. I'm glad we're on the same page with this." It's it. One person I actually miss quite a bit. Steve
Steve.
Miller. Yeah, I love
Steve
that guy,
Miller,
dude.
what a legend.
Oh, he never really told me no, especially with all these like crazy rigging things that we did for DAP and BAM and stuff like that. As long as you came to him with a plan, he'd be like, "Okay, but you should like actually do it like this." I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." But I was like, he always toyed with my crazy ideas. And then again, he was like, "With what money, Dev? With what money? Where do you think this money is coming from?" I'm like, I know. I just want to do cool shit. Okay."
We were surprisingly underfunded in certain project aspects,
Yeah,
considering the fact that we went to a conservatory.
I know. Ugh. Yes, we went to a conservatory, but I still came out with a fuck ton of loans that I'm still trying to pay off.
Yeah, I'm sure it's worse for you and the rest of the Texas clan.
Yeah, I think if you weren't able to pay any of the loans or like any out of pocket and you took all loans, I think it came out to like around $180,000,
Jesus.
which yeah, which sucks. Luckily I came out with I think $22,000 of loans, which I'm like slowly chipping away at, and I'm super
Oh, you
grateful
were right
about it.
around the same place that I was in-state tuition, so.
Yeah, and I'm super grateful for that and my parents supporting me through that because, to be honest, CCM was the only school that accepted me. I applied to
Really?
like, oh yeah, I was the worst student, Carrie. I got all C's because I'm like, C's get degrees. And my I think my SAT score was like a 1350 or something like that. It was just like so bad, and I never took it seriously. And the only thing that got me into CCM was my interview. And I think that's kind of a staple of our industry is like if you learn how to interview well and talk well, that's kind of what it's all about, you know. That's how you make the connection in the relationship.
Absolutely. It's way more about like how you communicate and who you know than about what you know necessarily, because I feel like a lot of people are way more willing to teach you their way of doing something
Hmm.
if you don't know than people who are unwilling to work with people who are not communicative.
Yeah, and that's something we all kind of learned since we're all in roles of like teaching in CCM, which is a great skill set to learn. And I'm really glad that, you know, we were in positions where we had to teach underclassmen and kind of not like groom them, but teach them how not to be a dick, basically. Because most of all the freshmen who came in had a big old chip on their shoulder, and we're like, hey, that shit's not gonna fly here because you're gonna not make friends, and that's you gotta cut that shit out. Like, just if you don't know something, ask. Like, it's okay. We're not gonna yell at you for it. We're here to learn, and it's we're always learning. We're all learning. No one knows everything in this industry, so it's like always come into it with an open mind.
Yeah, that comes back to what we were talking about earlier, where like I always want to learn more about something. Like I can never get enough information about anything. Like
Hmm.
it's cool to learn other people's perspectives. And I think honestly, our whole world could use some more learning other people's perspectives right now, not just in our industry.
Oh, 100%. We especially in like our world and the government and everything, we're always talking about this conversation that we're supposed to be having, and like what conversation? You know, most of these conversations that like come about turn into yelling matches because someone is just too stubborn to listen to the other side or even just listen to facts, you know. Um, New York Pride was a couple of weeks ago, I think, and they did a live stream event, and you know, it was during the George Floyd protests and all of that, and one of the ladies in the comments was like, "Oh, all lives matter," and like instead of everyone just like turning on her and yelling at her and like that's not right, blah blah blah, like they actually sent her links and articles and like a bunch of uh, like news sources to explain why that wasn't okay. And she came back at the end of the live stream and she was like, "Thank you to everyone for educating me. I did not really understand the severity of, you know, those words, and now I do, and I understand the struggle that everyone is going through during this time." And it was that was a very heartwarming moment for me. I was like, this is what it's about. It's about educating each other and coming together as a team, you know.
It's not us versus them. It's all of us together.
I know. And so many people forget that fact. And it's, especially in politics right now, I feel like it's very extreme left and extreme right. And a lot of people are forgetting about the people in the middle. You know, it's like a lot of people do not directly agree with everything that the Democrats are saying or the Republicans. They pick and choose the information and make educated decisions based off of that. You know, it's like it's not just like, oh, I support this and anything they say I will support. It's like, no, you got to make your own decisions. You got to and get educated yourself so you can be a part of the conversation, you know?
Yeah, we all have a responsibility to learn as much as we can.
Hmm.
Like like school, of course, is one thing, but if you stop learning after you're done with school, then school didn't really teach you anything.
I would agree with that. Yeah. That's a great way to say it. It's I think one of the best advice someone's ever given me is don't go to college. You or to get the degree. You go to college to learn how to learn. And I think that's the most important lesson I kind of took out of college because like especially with CCM, it's like you could get away with not doing a lot, you know. Especially since it's a conservatory, we didn't have to go to like gen eds, but it's like you learned how to learn and have the conversation, especially when we had our production meetings. Oh my gosh, some of those production meetings got so heated, but it's like we all need to take a step back and like actually figure out a solution to this problem because if we don't, this show is not going to go up and it's not going to be the best it can be. you know?
Absolutely. And I mean, you would even see like there was so much pettiness, honestly, between our professors. It was kind of insane because it's like we should all be working together. That is the whole point of the collaborative art that is theater,
I
is to
know.
work together.
And I think one of the some of the funniest meetings I've ever been a part of were when um Jim Gage was in the room, and like usually the lighting designers would lead the lighting side of the discussion, and like the Emmys would sit back and like if there was a technical note about like practicals or something, they would discuss it with the TDs. It's not something you really need to like bring up during the meeting. But
Hmm.
like the lighting designers were very vocal, very like we're a team, we can get through this together, we can figure it out. And then Jim Gage was just bring down the hammer. He's like, no, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that for them. And we're like, no, 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 like Jim, it's okay. Like we can do it. Like it's really not that much more work. He's like, no, 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 no. But like, oh my god, okay, fine, we'll just agree with this for now. And then you kind of like pull the TDs aside, be like, hey, yeah, we'll just do this. Just don't tell Jim. Like we're good. We're good. We'll figure this out together. And they're like, okay, cool.
The
Uh,
politics of that environment.
yeah. Oh yeah. I wish I was still going to school when the new lighting what's her title? I guess head professor of lighting, maybe. Um
Was she
but
like taking over for Mark or?
she was taking over for Jim.
Ah,
Um
okay. Right, Jim
yeah.
retired.
Yeah. And I really want to see how that advanced. Oh.
That dynamic with her
Yeah.
in the room.
Oh yeah. Because I feel like, especially at CCM, as you were saying with the pettiness, I feel like people would like try to like walk all over her. But from what I understood during her interview process, she's a very strong-willed woman who will not back down. I was like, this is what we need. This is what we
Fuck
need in lighting. I'm so
yes.
excited. Let's make some changes. uh,
Honestly, like there were not enough strong female role models in CCM.
no, definitely.
Like, obviously not to talk badly about anyone because I didn't know Michelle very well and I didn't see her all that often, to be honest.
yeah,
But I didn't have anybody of my gender besides her and Kat to look up to. And like
yeah,
obviously Kat Miller is a badass
yeah. She's a boss.
and I love her dearly.
Ugh,
But like, I don't know. I feel like we needed more of that, especially with the way the industry is progressing where there's a lot more females getting into the tech side.
hmm
Like, I think that's super exciting that they hired a female lighting professor.
yeah. And I don't know. Have you had any troubles with like people not respecting you because you're a female technician?
Well, yes and no. So, for starters, when I got hired with my show, I was the youngest technician on the show.
Yeah, I've
And
definitely been there.
like almost the youngest, I think, in the whole like between artists and technicians. There's one artist who was younger than me. I think he was like 18 or 19 at the time that I joined.
hmm
Um, but it was a big change to be stepping into that position and to be so young and obviously to be a female as well. And I'm a small person for those of you who might be listening who don't know me. I'm not big and imposing, but I didn't feel like I had that problem as much when I was at Cirque. I had a lot of female colleagues who were really great, and honestly very inspiring in terms of like not taking sexism and not taking the bullshit from anybody else. And it was a
Yeah.
really good environment to move into.
Yeah, I've met a lot of females lighting techs working in the industry, and they're some of the most badass chicks I know. Like they will not take shit from anybody, and I love it because sometimes like, union guys can be there. Some of them are part of the older generation, and they treat people differently. So like one of my friends, she was at a gig and they were calling her sweetheart and blah blah blah. And literally the thing she did, like all the other union guys were like respecting her and calling her by her name and doing everything she asked, and one guy was just kind of giving her flack, and she turned around and be like, "Hey, I'm not taking this shit. So right now, I'm gonna call you Betty from now on. All right,
Oh,
sweetheart." And she just turned it right back at him, and he shut the fuck up so fast. And he was like, "Oh shit, I really fucked up." And then like all the other union guys were calling him nicknames too, and I was like, honestly, if you I think if you're ever in a position where someone's giving you shit and you just gotta throw it back. Most of the time I feel like people are just like testing you to see if you're gonna back down or take the challenge, and most of the time if you just throw the shit back, they'll back down and shut the fuck up. Which is a lot of what I've like kind of taught my colleagues about too. It's like some people are just dicks, and you have to be a dick back, and then they'll finally start to respect you, or they'll just back down, you know. And like
absolutely.
speaking of being young, I think I talked about this with Jack on the last podcast, but I was 18 or 19 doing being the L2 for a tour. It was just a one-stop tour load in, but everything was going fine until I told the union guys my age, you know, because like eventually you start getting like friendly with the union guys and you kind of just start chit chatting, and they're like, "Oh, you're 18." I was like, "Yeah, man, yeah, I've been doing this for like 4 years now, and finally up to where I am now." And they're like, "Oh, I've been doing this for 25, and I'm still just pushing cases." And then like they just lost all the respect for me. I couldn't lead the crew anymore after that, you know. And it was just like,
Which is so sad. Like, just because you went through something different than what they went through doesn't mean that it makes your experience any less valuable.
yeah, I mean, there are some union guys that have taught me small little like tricks that have changed the way I do things, you know. And that stuff just comes with experience, you know. It's like no, you can't read that in a book, you know. And
Hmm.
like I will never not stop learning, as we've been talking about.
Yeah. And I
um,
think that's a mark of a great technician. And like nothing against union guys because a lot of them are really great and they know things that, like you said, that you don't learn in a book, but they also they get comfortable where they are. They don't
mhm,
try to push for more.
yeah, definitely. And that's kind of like I don't think unions will really ever be a part of something that I will join. Like I don't think I'll ever join a union just because I'm a little angsty teenager still on the inside. And I'm like I hate rules. Like I can't follow rules, you know? And with joining a union comes a lot of politics, and
So
I just
much
do
in
that.
terms of politics.
Yeah. It's the same thing at school. Like in college, I was always fighting the system. I almost got kicked out twice because of quote quote my attitude, but like also like I just stopped learning after my I think my sophomore year was when I got called into the into like a meeting, and they were like, "You don't seem happy here." And I'm like, "I'm not." Like a lot of the things we're doing now are kind of just like rinse and repeat, especially in the lighting world and theater. It's like, "All right, we're going to load in a show. Here's the plot. Here's all the same stuff, you know?" And it's the same repetitive um,
Repetitive.
thank you, repetitive motion
Yeah.
of loading in a show. It's like, all right, we're gonna strip all the lighting, we're gonna hang the plot, then we're gonna cable with power, and then we're gonna cable with DMX. And I was very much getting tired of it because especially in some of the theaters that we had in school, there were only a couple ways to do a lighting plot just because of the weird like layout of the theater. So it was very like, oh, we hang movers in the same place, you know, almost every time, and there's like this one trick to get this mover into this one spot that like, you know, you just have to learn. But I got called into a meeting and they're like, "You don't seem happy and you seem like you don't want to be here." And I'm like, "I don't. Like I'm kind of over theater right now, and like I want to be working, but I'm going to sit here and finish my degree because that's what I came here to do." And from that conversation is kind of how I started to push and manage the DAP and BAM and Boom projects. They were like, this is what you want to do with your life, so we're going to kind of like give this to you, but you have to manage it on your own. We'll be here to guide you if you need it, but like you're basically kind of like the production manager for the show. And I was like, okay, cool. Like that's what I want. And especially with that, like I after Boom my freshman year, I went home that night and basically designed a plot for BAM the next year. And that kind of just sat in my mind for a year until it kind of came to fruition, which is so funny. It's so funny. I can't tell you how many nights that me and Gus were just sitting on a couch and like, maybe once a week we'd like talk about it and be like, hey, so I need this to happen. They're like, Gus is always like, it's not gonna happen, dude. We don't have the budget. And then about like a month or two out from the actual event, he was like, okay, I can make it work. Like, we got it. It's a go. I was like, cool, great, we're doing it. Oh,
That's so cool that they saw you were unhappy and they offered you more challenges. Like,
yeah. And I really wish CCM, because I think CCM is really good at what it does. It teaches you a lot about theater, but I don't think a lot of students are coming there anymore for theater. They're coming there to get the education as a stepping stone into like the touring world and like the concert world, and you know and I just wish CCM had more projects that would get them like real world experience, which is like a really hard thing to sell, because like how do you do that, right?
yeah, like partnering with the Airnoff even or doing something like that.
Yeah. Or like I wish CCM, I wish there was a department in CCM that kind of worked like its own little like business entity where they could sell shows, like sell their own labor to like load-ins or something. So it's like, hey guys, we have this opportunity this weekend. We need like 35 people to go load in this arena show or some shit like that. And I'm like, that would be the greatest education you could get if you're getting practical education in arenas and like concert venues while you're in school. Oh my god, that's the dream.
Absolutely. I would have loved to have more chances like that.
Yeah. It's just like it always comes once again, it always comes down to money, time, and like politics. uh, so I have seen that you've been playing a lot of Dead by Daylight recently.
So much Dead by Daylight.
I
Well, it's
wish.
the anniversary, so we were getting all the event stuff.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Uh,
they
I, w-
have like cakes for bonus blood points, so like everybody's burning the cake. Great.
I wish I could play more, but usually when you guys get on, it's like midnight, and me and Sam share a room. So Dead by Daylight is the only game I can't play when she's sleeping because
Scared.
I cannot control my voice and how loud I am when I play that game. It's a scary game.
It is. It really is.
But I have been trying. I built like my new gaming computer, and she's been using my laptop, so we've been playing Halo multiplayer recently, or the Halo campaign. And I am trying to get her to play Dead by Daylight so hard, and she's like, "No, it looks
Yes.
so scary." And I'm like, "No, it's so much fun. Please, just play like
You get
two
used to
games."
it too.
Yeah, it's a great game. I don't like playing Dead by Daylight online. I like playing when we have like a custom lobby.
See, I used to be that way, and then I got really into playing online, but only if I have friends to play with, so it's
Hmm.
not just me and three random people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Ugh, I wish. I don't know what I'm trying to like think back of what other games I've been playing recently, but I feel like there hasn't been anything like super good that's kept my attention span. Like I always kind of like keep going back to Modern Warfare, but that's just because it's a game I could like pick up and put down, like play 2 rounds and then like get off and walk away. But I haven't played a
Well,
game that's like held my attention for a very long time.
I played like I logged 300 hours ish in Animal Crossing after that came out
I
because that
know.
was like right when everything happened.
And
And that was great.
I've been debating on getting a Switch for probably 6 months now. Like, I want to play the new Zelda. I want to play Super
It's so
Smash.
good.
And I'm just like, I can't find. I've walked into GameStop so many times, like I'm gonna buy a Switch today, and then I kind of walk up and look at it, I'm like, do I really need this? I don't really need this.
It's an excellent plane companion.
hmm do you have
That's
the
part
light
of why I
version
love
or
it.
like the full version?
The full version.
Uh, I was
But
debating
I've heard
getting
the
the
light
light.
isn't bad.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have the functionality the original does, where you can, like, it's grab and go and also plug and play.
Yeah. Yeah. I really want to do. I miss Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube
Double
was
Dash.
my shit, and I
Same.
love the GameCube. I love Super Smash Melee, uh, Mario Kart Double Dash, and Zelda Wind Waker. Those are my three like top GameCube games, and Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Sunshine was a good game.
Oh, yeah. It was a
I'm
fantastic console.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to come out with like a. They came out with a SNES like emulation station, like officially from Nintendo, and it's like a tiny little like miniature version of the SNES. But it just takes like a SD card and you can play all the games on it. But I'm waiting for them to make like a mini GameCube version. That
That
would be
would
my
be
dream.
adorable.
I
Teeny tiny GameCube.
know, and it's kind of funny too, cause like you can get a Dolphin emulator for your computer and play GameCube games, but like I want like a little mini console that I can still like plug controllers into.
I really also love the concept of that. I use Dolphin too. Um, One of my favorite GameCube games is Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and they're coming out with a new Paper Mario for the Switch like next week.
Oh,
I'm
nice.
really excited.
Yeah. Uh, and for some reason, I think the GameCube controller is the best Nintendo controller that they have ever made. I haven't used. I think that the Nintendo Switch they have like a Pro controller or something. I haven't used that one, but the GameCube controller has a special place in my heart.
I agree. The Pro controller has a very similar feel to a GameCube controller, which is why I really like it.
hmm
Plus, we had that issue that a lot of people have been having where we were getting Joy-Con drift
Oh,
after a
really?
couple of years. Yeah, a year or so of like having our Switch, and it was like, well,
There
why a
goes
Pro
that.
controller? Why not?
Yeah.
Sad that it's such a common problem, though.
Yeah, and I don't really understand how that happens. I guess the electronics are just going bad or something.
Yeah, it's something like I think it's something to do with like dirt gets in between the contacts after
Mm-hmm.
a while, and it just causes it not to work right. But that's like a pretty big design flaw that you think they would have fixed by now.
Yeah. So when you repair electronics, are you like at a soldering station?
Oh yeah,
I
been doing a lot of soldering.
I cannot tell you how many like small little like personal projects I've had where I'm like trying to repair like my headset or something that broke. And I'm like going in and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be great." And then like you rip off a contact pad on accident and you're just like, "Oh
hmm
shit."
And you're
Or
like, well, now I just have to buy a new one.
yeah, or you like I think we were talking about this, but during our electronics class, it's like when you break an electronic component, you know because it has a smell.
It
And
does.
like
It has a very specific smell.
and I can't tell you how many times like I've been repairing something and just like, "Oh shit. God damn
There it is.
it."
That's always the worst.
Yeah.
You fry something that you're trying to fix.
It's the and my take on it is always like, well, it was broken anyways. So if there's a chance I could fix it, I might take the chance to fix it before I invest more money into buying a new one or something like that. Which is a great way to start learning about electronics, y'all. If you break something, try to fix it yourself. Only way to learn is by trial and error.
Absolutely.
Have you been watching any you watch anime, right?
Yes, I do.
We're gonna get a little weeby for a second because I don't have anyone who watches anime with me, so we're gonna talk about this. What have you been watching recently?
I haven't been watching anything super recently. The last thing I was like really into was I watched like the first two seasons of My Hero Academia,
Mm-hmm.
and I
It's a
was
good
waiting
show.
for the dub of season 3 or season 4. I can't remember what season we're on now, but I was waiting for the dub of the next season before I was gonna start watching again.
Do you like exclusively watch dubs, or do you just watch dubs because it's kind of easier?
I like to watch dubs because it's easier, but I have nothing against watching subs. I like the English voice actors for the
Mm-hmm.
anime, so it's just
Yeah.
like easier to watch it and listen.
For
But I
me, it's
watch everything with subtitles now anyway, like even
yeah,
if it's in English.
yeah. I it's very hit or miss for me for dubbed versions, just because sometimes the voice actors are like not not good, and it's like this is
Hmm.
they're very squeaky on the dubs. I think the only dubbed versions I've really watched are the Full Metal Alchemist series. The dub versions are so
Yes,
good. Oh my
I
gosh.
love Full Metal Alchemist. I was actually rewatching that recently too. I haven't gotten all the way through it yet.
Do you like the original or Brotherhood more?
Brotherhood,
Yeah, same, same.
hands down, it's so much better.
Yeah, I've been re Sword Art Online will always be like my number one anime. I love that show. I've watched that show back to back so many times, and I think the new season is coming out sometime soon. Um, but I've been watching that. I've been watching the last couple of seasons of Naruto Shippuden, the Great Ninja War arc,
Yes.
which is I'm not gonna lie, when I watched the ending of Naruto Shippuden for the first time, I was in tears. I was like, all of this, and this is like the best fucking way this show could end.
It's so good. Like I
Uh,
read all of Naruto.
oh, did you?
Oh, yeah. It was like a couple years ago I read all of Naruto. It was so good.
Do you think the show did a pretty good job of like staying original to the books?
Yeah, I would say so.
That's one thing I've never really gotten into is mangas, just because I'm lazy and I'd much rather watch an animated version of it.
That's fair.
But I know some people who are like the mangas are so much better. Like there's so much more detail and it's much more like kind of like about the story. If that makes sense. I don't really know if that made sense.
Kind of. But I think it's a matter of personal preference. I think both can be good.
Hmm. Yeah, like because I was never really like a comic book person either. I don't think I was really much of a reader when I was growing up anyway. But
And that's fair.
yeah, I kind of reflect on my life sometimes, and I realize how big the internet slash like YouTube was important to my like education. Like I think I learned most of what I know on YouTube, which is it's kind of crazy to think about it now because you can basically go learn anything you want to learn online, especially with like websites like lynda.com and all these like masterclass courses. It's like you don't really need to go to college anymore unless you kind of need the experience, but like the education is out there if you want it. It's just you got to put in the time yourself.
100%, yeah. Like it's insane the things you can look up on the internet and learn for free.
Hmm. Like I I feel like I'm like a novice cooker, but a lot of the things I've learned from cooking is basically off YouTube. I really want to go to culinary school though. Like there are some things that I wish like before I was dead set on becoming like a lighting tech slash programmer, I was either going to go into the film industry and be like a cameraman, or I was going to go into culinary school. And because who doesn't love food, right? Like it's always going to bring you joy.
Food will never hurt you.
Oh, and it's just so good. Do you know
And
what a
that's
sous
why
vide
I'm
machine?
glad I get the best of both worlds
Mm-hmm.
with my boy.
Do you know what a sous vide machine is?
Yes.
They have changed my life.
They're
It's
really cool too. Like the science behind that is incredible.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, sous vide machines basically it's like a water bath. So you put your whatever you're cooking into a vacuum bag or like a Ziploc bag, and then you put that bag, submerge it under water, and the sous vide machine heats up the water, keeps it circulating, and basically it kind of just brings the food up to temperature. And the best part about it is you can leave it for 1 hour. Most things can cook from like, it will be like done cooking from like an hour to an hour and a half, but you can leave it all the way up to 4 hours and it won't overcook whatever you have in there. So it's kind of great for me because I can put something in there, walk away, and then just like come back later and it's done. Like it's so zero effort. The worst part though is when you take it out, when it's like done cooking, you pull it out of the bag, it just looks so unappetizing.
It looks so wrong.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, you always have to like sear it after you sous vide it to give it color and crust, but it's like usually like a pale gray when you pull it out, and you're like, I don't know how I feel about this.
I don't want to eat this, but the inside is perfect.
Oh, perfect. I usually cook like steaks in my sous vide. I did a pork tenderloin, I think yesterday, which came out beautifully, and chicken. If you don't want dried chicken, stick it in the sous vide. And the best part about sous vides is they're like $80. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, they're super reasonable.
Yeah.
It's better than a ridiculous crock pot that you have to remember a bunch of settings for.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't know. I think I kind of like inherently have something against crock pots. I don't really like the idea of crock pots. I'd much rather put something in like a pressure cooker that because most of the time when you put something in a crock pot, it takes like 4 to 8 hours to cook, and
Hmm.
like the same thing can be done in a pressure cooker in like 15 minutes. I don't know, but yeah. Um, do you have any last comments before we wrap this up, Carrie? It was a joy having you. Hopefully, we'll
It
have
was
you more
great to be
often.
here. Yeah, I would love that.
I
Love to just
really,
come hang out and talk.
yeah, honestly, Sam says it all the time, but he's like, this is so therapeutic because it's one time a week that I can come and just like hang out with my friends and talk about whatever. I'm like, yeah, dude, that's the whole point of it. Especially when we have like kind of not like I've been kind of getting stir crazy and like being online and like having something to like look forward to every week really puts my mind at ease.
I agree. That's part of why like I look forward to D&D when we're playing D&D.
I know. I hope we. I'm very excited to after we kind of wrap up this chapter of the campaign. I I really hope Ben does the like NCIS version of D&D where anyone can join and like the entire like it's like a one mission campaign story and like it doesn't really connect to the rest of the like main campaign if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love
Cuz
doing like little one-shotty kind of things like that.
yeah, cuz I think that way too it's like more we could have it more frequently cuz it doesn't we don't need to get like the entire group together, you know.
Yeah, we could even have like I don't know if Bryce or if Zach would be interested in playing, but like we could have like them sub in and out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could just be like who's available at this time to do some D&D stuff.
Yeah. And like finally since I've like actually got my character leveled up and fixed. Like I'm like not dying every every campaign. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I can actually do things now.
That's the hard part of playing any spellcaster class, though, is like you're
Yeah,
super low HP.
yeah, and it takes. I think I've just been using D&D Beyond. I haven't been going by the book just because D&D Beyond is a much more easier layout for me to follow for my first time playing. And
It's
it's
super
like,
intuitive too.
yeah, and it like I think since it's D&D Beyond, they want you to like pay to get their full service or whatever, but it's like you don't really get your like second level skills until level 3, I think. So like
Mm.
the last couple of campaigns I've just been like sitting there and like not doing shit. And then I think the last campaign we had I was like, "Oh, I can do things. Let's do things." Ah.
Yeah, I was thinking about like if we were really going to be serious about doing it more often, that I was going to look into maybe buying the premium membership thing for it.
Yeah. I yeah, I think a lot of stuff is just happening. I think like Cole recently moved to Georgia, so he's kind of doing that, and Ben's moving right now, and everyone's just kind of busy at the moment. But hopefully we can get back to it soon.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, Carrie, thank you for joining the Backstage podcast. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so
Um,
much. It was great to be here.
yeah. We'll be back next Friday at 3 p.m. and you can catch all of our archives of our previous podcast on YouTube. Once again, we did make social medias, and I now added this super cool intro that I'm super excited about. And it's kind of, ugh, I'm so glad I have something to do now. Like it's so nice to have a drive again. uh, but anyways, all right, we'll be back next Friday at 3 p.m. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye bye.